A live broadcast turned deadly silent when the rescued dog refused to move, eyes locked on the anchor with a familiarity that made her go pale. One word slipped from her lips, a name she hadn't spoken since the night she chased a van through a snowstorm. And the dog's explosive reaction revealed the truth the world wasn't ready for. He knew her, but how did he find her? Before we begin, don't scroll past this story without subscribing. This reunion took 7 years to happen. Don't let their journey be forgotten. Hit subscribe so more people can witness moments like this. Ready, let's dive in. The studio lights burned white-hot overhead, casting sharp shadows across the polished news desk where Diane Johnson sat with her hands folded, script perfectly positioned, smile camera ready. Outside the glass walls of Studio 4B, Manhattan hummed with its usual morning chaos, but inside, everything was controlled. Timed. Professional. And we're back in 10, the floor director called out, fingers counting down. 9, 8. Diane straightened her navy blazer and glanced at the teleprompter. Segment 12, Adopt Don't Shop, Heroes Without Homes. A feel-good story. Easy. Heartwarming. The kind of piece that made viewers reach for their coffee mugs and smile before heading to work. Behind camera 2, a side door opened. A trainer stepped through, leading a German shepherd on a short leather leash. The dog moved with disciplined grace, head level, posture calm. Exactly what a service dog should look like. 3, 2. The red light blinked on. Welcome back to Morning Point Live, Diane said smoothly, her voice warm and practiced. This morning, we're highlighting an incredible organization that rescues and rehabilitates working dogs who. The German shepherd stopped walking. Completely. Abruptly. His body went rigid, muscles tensing beneath his tan and black coat. His ears shot forward like radar dishes locking onto a signal. His dark eyes fixed on Diane with an intensity that sent a shiver through the studio air. Diane's voice caught mid-sentence. Who deserve a second chance at? The words died in her throat. The dog's chest began to rise and fall rapidly. His mouth opened slightly. A soft, broken whine escaped, barely audible over the studio hum, but the boom mic caught it. Diane's hands trembled against the desk. Her heart slammed against her ribs as something impossible clawed its way up from the depths of her memory. 7 years. 7 years of silence. 7 years of forcing herself to forget. She knew those eyes. Billy? The name fell from her lips in a whisper, raw and unguarded, nothing like the polished anchor voice millions knew. In the control room, the director leaned forward. What's happening? Why'd she stop? On set, the trainer tightened his grip on the leash, sensing the shift in his dog's demeanor. Easy, boy, he murmured, confused. The dog had never behaved like this. Not once in 2 years of flawless training. But the German shepherd wasn't listening. His entire body trembled now, paws shifting against the polished studio floor. His tail, usually controlled and still, began to wag, slowly at first, then faster, desperate. Another whine tore from his throat, louder this time, filled with something that sounded heartbreakingly like recognition. Diane's vision blurred. Her carefully constructed composure shattered. Billy, she said again, louder now, voice breaking. The cameras continued rolling. 3 million viewers watched from their living rooms, offices, and phones, completely unaware they were about to witness something that would shatter the internet by noon. The dog's muscles coiled. The trainer's grip faltered. And in that suspended moment, lights blazing, cameras humming, confetti still drifting down from the previous segment celebration, everything hung on the edge of eruption. Michigan, 7 years before the studio. The wind screamed across Interstate 94 like something alive and furious, hurling ice crystals against the windshield of Ambulance 12 with enough force to make the wipers groan. Inside the cab, EMT trainee Diane Johnson gripped the OSHA handle above the passenger door, her breath fogging the glass as her partner, Carl Martinez, navigated the treacherous highway with white-knuckled precision. "Dispatch says it's just a fender bender," Carl muttered, eyes locked on the road. "Nobody injured. We confirm, document, and get the hell out before this storm gets worse." Diane nodded, adrenaline still humming beneath her skin despite the routine nature of the call. 3 months into her EMT certification, every shift still felt monumental. Every call still mattered. The accident site appeared through the swirling white, 2 vehicles with minor damage, hazard lights blinking weakly against the blizzard. Carl pulled over, and they stepped out into air so cold it burned Diane's lungs. She was halfway to the first vehicle when she heard it. A sound so faint it barely registered over the howling wind. A whimper. High-pitched. Desperate. Diane stopped, head tilting. "Did you hear that?" "Hear what?" Carl was already talking to the driver, clipboard in hand. The sound came again, weaker this time, nearly swallowed by the storm. Diane turned toward the shoulder of the highway, where snow had piled into deep drifts against the guardrail. Her boots crunched through the icy crust as she moved closer, flashlight cutting through the darkness. "Diane, where are you going?" Carl called out. She didn't answer. Couldn't. Because there, half buried in a snowbank like something discarded and forgotten, was a German shepherd puppy. He was impossibly small, no bigger than her forearm, his tan and black fur matted with ice. His body was curled tight, rigid, each shallow breath visible in the freezing air. Someone had left him here. Abandoned him to die. "Oh God," Diane whispered, dropping to her knees. "Hey, little guy. Hey, I've got you." She peeled off her gloves with trembling fingers and reached for him carefully. His skin was cold, too cold, like touching marble. But when her palm pressed against his tiny chest, she felt it, a heartbeat. Faint. Fluttering. Fighting. "Carl," she shouted over her shoulder. "I need the ambulance open. Now." "What?" "Diane, we can't. Now." The puppy's eyes opened just a sliver, dark, glassy, unfocused. But when Diane spoke again, soft and close, his gaze shifted toward her voice. "You're okay," she murmured, unzipping her coat and pressing him against her chest, skin to fur, heartbeat to heartbeat. "I've got you. You're not alone." The puppy trembled once. Then again. He was trying. He was fighting because she was holding him. Carl appeared beside her, exasperation shifting to shock when he saw what she'd found. "Diane, we have protocols. He'll die if we leave him. He might die anyway." Diane looked up, eyes fierce. "Then he dies warm." She carried the puppy to the ambulance, climbed into the back, and wrapped him in emergency blankets. Throughout the ride to the nearest emergency vet, he whimpered whenever her hands left him. But when she whispered close, steady, calm, present, he quieted. As if he knew, even then, that she was the only thing standing between him and the cold. Northridge Emergency Veterinary Clinic, 4:47 a.m. The fluorescent lights in the clinic's intensive care unit hummed with sterile indifference as Dr. Ellen Reeves emerged from the back room, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. Diane shot to her feet from the waiting room chair where she'd been sitting for 3 hours, coat still dusted with melting snow. "He made it through the night," Dr. Reeves said, and Diane's knees nearly buckled with relief. "But I have to be honest, I've never seen anything like this." "What do you mean?" The vet gestured toward the recovery area. "His core temperature was 79 degrees when you brought him in. Puppies don't survive that. Medically, he shouldn't be breathing right now." She paused, her expression shifting to something almost reverent. "But every time his vitals dropped, Every time we thought we were losing him, he'd rally. Like he was holding on for something. Can I see him? Dr. Reeves nodded. He won't let anyone else touch him. We tried rotating staff, same reaction every time. Whining, trembling, refusing contact. But when I played a recording of your voice from the intake paperwork. She trailed off, shaking her head. He went completely still. Listening. Diane followed her into the recovery room, where a small heating kennel sat beneath warm lamps. Inside, wrapped in blankets, was the puppy, eyes barely open, but alert. Watching. The moment Diane knelt beside the kennel, his tail twitched. Once. Twice. Hey, Billy, she whispered, the name arriving fully formed, carrying the weight of her grandfather's strength, his refusal to quit. You did it, buddy. You made it. The puppy, Billy, released a soft whimper and shifted toward her voice, nose pressing against the kennel bars. Something inside Diane's chest cracked open. The next 3 weeks. Diane rearranged her entire life around Billy's recovery. Between shifts at the EMT station, she drove to the clinic, sometimes twice a day, to bottle feed him warmed puppy formula. His coordination was shaky at first, milk dribbling down his chin, but he drank eagerly whenever she held the bottle. There you go, she murmured during a late-night feeding, his tiny paws kneading against her forearm. Strong boy. That's my strong boy. Dr. Reeves taught her how to massage his paws and legs, restoring circulation to tissue that had nearly frozen. Billy would lie utterly still during these sessions, dark eyes fixed on Diane's face, as if memorizing every feature. The nightmare started on day 4. Billy would jolt awake in his kennel, yelping, body rigid with remembered cold. The vet techs tried soothing him, but he'd only cry harder. Until Diane arrived. Then she'd lift him carefully, press him against her chest, right over her heartbeat, and whisper the same words she'd spoken on the frozen highway. You're okay. I've got you. You're not alone. And Billy would melt into her, trembling, slowing, breathing, evening out, safe. By the end of week 2, the clinic staff stopped being surprised when they found Diane asleep on the floor beside Billy's kennel, one hand resting inside the bars, his nose tucked against her palm. Week 3. Billy grew stronger. His legs steadied. His eyes brightened. His ears perked up at every sound. But it was Diane he waited for. When she entered the clinic, he'd scramble to the front of his kennel, tail wagging so hard his entire body wiggled. When she left, he'd watch the door for hours, refusing food until she returned. His chosen you, Dr. Reeves said one afternoon, watching Billy follow Diane's every movement during a supervised play session. Dogs bond with their rescuers sometimes, but this is different. Diane sat cross-legged on the clinic floor, Billy curled in her lap, one paw resting against her wrist. I chose him too, she said softly. Neither of them knew how little time they had left. 3 weeks and 2 days after the rescue. The phone call came during Diane's shift, a Tuesday morning, unremarkable except for the light snow dusting the ambulance windshield. She almost didn't answer the unknown number. Miss Johnson? This is Karen Holbrook from Northridge Animal Services. Diane's stomach tightened. Is Billy okay? He's fine. Physically, he's made a complete recovery, which is why I'm calling. A pause. Papers rustling in the background. We've secured placement for him in a specialized rehabilitation program. It's an incredible opportunity. They work with high-potential breeds, prepare them for service work. He leaves today. The world tilted. Today? What do you mean today? The transport leaves at noon. I know this is sudden, but the program rarely has openings, and given Billy's intelligence and resilience. I'm coming there. Right now. Miss Johnson, the decision has already been. Diane ended the call, hand shaking so badly she nearly dropped the phone. "Carl, I need the vehicle." Her voice came out strangled, desperate. Her partner looked up from his coffee, confused. "What?" "We're on shift until." "Please." Something in her face made him toss her the keys without another word. Northridge Animal Shelter, 11:53 a.m. Diane drove through deteriorating weather, the light snow from earlier transforming into a full blizzard. Visibility dropped to near zero. She didn't slow down. The shelter parking lot appeared through the white curtain of falling snow, and her heart stopped. A white transport van idled near the exit, exhaust puffing into the frozen air. Through the rear window, she could see stacked crates. "No, no, no," Diane whispered, slamming the gearshift into park before the ambulance fully stopped. She threw open the door and ran. "Wait! Stop!" The van's brake lights flicked off. "Wait!" She sprinted across the icy parking lot, boots sliding, arms windmilling for balance. The van pulled forward slowly, turning toward the exit. And then she heard it. Barking. Frantic, high-pitched, desperate. "Billy! Billy!" Diane screamed his name, closing the distance, slipping on black ice but staying upright through sheer force of will. Inside the van, Billy exploded into motion. His crate rattled violently as he threw himself against the bars, paws scrabbling for purchase, claws scraping metal. His barks transformed into howls, raw, broken sounds that carried across the parking lot like a physical wound. Diane reached the van just as it cleared the lot entrance. She chased it onto the main road, snow pelting her face, lungs burning. "Stop the van! Please!" Billy's cries intensified. She could see him now through the rear window, nose pressed between the crate bars, eyes wild, searching. The moment he spotted her, his entire body convulsed with recognition. He knew. He understood what was happening. "I'm here, Billy. I'm here." Diane's voice cracked, tears freezing on her cheeks. But the driver didn't hear her. Didn't see her. The van accelerated, merging into traffic. Diane ran harder, feet pounding pavement, but the distance grew. 10 feet. 20. 30. Billy's howls grew fainter but no less desperate, a sound that would replay in her nightmares for years to come. If your heart is breaking watching Billy get taken away, please subscribe. Stories like this deserve to be told, and your support helps keep them alive. Let's continue. She ran until her legs gave out, collapsing onto the snow-covered shoulder of the road, gasping for air that wouldn't come. The van disappeared around a bend, taillight swallowed by the storm. Gone. Diane knelt there in the snow, arms wrapped around herself, and sobbed, raw, guttural sounds torn from somewhere deep and irrevocable. She had saved his life. But she couldn't save him from leaving. That wound would never fully heal. 7 years of distance. Diane's path. The months after losing Billy moved like footage played at the wrong speed, too slow when she was alone, too fast when she tried to focus on anything else. Diane threw herself into work with an intensity that worried her colleagues. She volunteered for double shifts, took the most difficult calls, studied emergency medicine with obsessive precision. If she stayed busy enough, exhausted enough, maybe she wouldn't hear phantom barking in quiet moments. It didn't work. 18 months after the van disappeared into the blizzard, she transferred to a Detroit hospital system, seeking a fresh start in a city where nothing reminded her of frozen highways and broken promises. She excelled there, calm under pressure, compassionate with patients, reliable in crisis. A local news station noticed. They were developing a public health segment and needed someone who understood emergency medicine from the inside. Would she be interested in a trial appearance? Diane said yes, surprising herself. The camera loved her. Viewers responded to her authenticity, her ability to translate complex medical situations into accessible human stories. Within 2 years, she transitioned fully into broadcast journalism, moving to Columbus, then Chicago, climbing steadily through mid-market stations. By year 5, she landed in New York, co-host of Morning Point Live, a national platform with 3 million daily viewers. Everyone saw the polished anchor with the warm smile and steady presence. No one saw the woman who still flinched when she passed German shepherds on the street, who'd never adopted a pet, who carried a small scar on her heart shaped exactly like a puppy she'd loved and lost. Billy's path. The rehabilitation facility in northern Wisconsin specialized in transforming rescues into elite service dogs. Billy arrived as a 4-month-old puppy with a remarkable survival story and unusual potential. He exceeded every expectation. His obedience was flawless. His intelligence bordered on uncanny, learning complex commands after single demonstrations, anticipating needs before handlers signaled them. His temperament remained calm, focused, gentle. But there were complications. During year 2 of training, Billy began displaying anxiety in specific situations. When EMTs visited the facility for cross-training exercises, he'd grow restless, pacing, whining softly, searching faces with desperate intensity. Female voices in certain registers made his ears perk up, his body tense, as if waiting for someone specific. It's attachment trauma, lead trainer Michelle Garrison noted in his file. Likely imprinted on his original rescuer. Common in dogs with early abandonment experiences. They tried desensitization protocols. Exposure therapy. Nothing worked. Billy performed his service duties perfectly, guiding, alerting, protecting. But between assignments, he'd sit by windows, watching. Waiting. For what? No one could determine. By year 6, the decision was made: early retirement. Billy's anxiety, while manageable, made him unreliable for permanent placement with a single handler. He needed someone who understood his unique needs. Someone who could give him the stability he was searching for. He was transferred to Empire State Service Dog Rescue in New York, a high-profile organization that showcased adoptable dogs on local media outlets. "He'll find his person," Michelle said, scratching behind Billy's ears before he left Wisconsin. "I know he will." Billy pressed his nose against her palm, then turned back toward the facility entrance. Still searching. Still waiting. The convergence. Neither Diane nor Billy knew they were living in the same city. Neither knew the other had never stopped searching, one through crowded streets and sleepless nights, the other through scents and sounds and the ghost of a heartbeat remembered from a frozen highway. But fate, patient and persistent, was already arranging the pieces. A publicist made a phone call. A producer confirmed a segment. And a German shepherd named Billy was scheduled to appear on Morning Point Live. Morning Point Live Studio, 7:42 a.m. Diane stood backstage, script in hand, reviewing the final segment notes while makeup artists made last-minute touch-ups. Around her, the controlled chaos of live television hummed, producers speaking urgently into headsets, camera operators adjusting angles, audio technicians checking levels. Just another Tuesday morning. Segment 12, feel-good content to close the show. Diane, quick briefing. Rebecca Chen, the segment producer, appeared beside her holding a tablet. "We've got a retired service dog from Empire State Rescue. German Shepherd, 7 years old, incredibly well-trained but being adopted out due to some emotional sensitivity issues." "What kind of issues?" Diane asked, half listening while mentally rehearsing her opening lines. "Nothing aggressive. He just gets anxious around certain stimuli, specific scents, voices. They think it's related to early trauma, but he's otherwise perfect." Great story, actually. Rescued as a dying puppy, became a service dog, now looking for his forever home. Something cold slithered down Diane's spine. She looked up sharply. Rescued? Where? Rebecca consulted the tablet. Michigan, I think? Yeah, Michigan Highway Rescue. 7 years ago. She glanced at her watch. You've got 3 minutes. The trainer's bringing him through the side entrance now. Diane's hands trembled slightly as she took the file Rebecca offered. She told herself it was ridiculous, thousands of dogs got rescued in Michigan. The timeline was just a coincidence. But her heart was pounding in a way that had nothing to do with pre-show nerves. She scanned the document quickly. Age, 7 years. Breed, German Shepherd. Origin, abandoned, near-fatal hypothermia, rescued by emergency personnel during winter storm. The words blurred. 2 minutes, the floor director called out. Through the backstage doorway, Diane heard footsteps and the soft click of claws against polished concrete. A trainer's calm voice murmuring instructions. Then, barely audible beneath the studio noise, a sound that made Diane's blood turn to ice. A whine. High-pitched. Uncertain. Familiar. The file slipped from her fingers, pages scattering across the floor. She didn't bend to retrieve them. Couldn't. Her entire body had locked into place, every instinct screaming that something impossible was about to happen. Diane? You okay? Rebecca touched her elbow, concerned. Diane didn't answer. She was staring at the doorway, heart hammering against her ribs, as the trainer rounded the corner leading a fully grown German Shepherd. The dog's head was down, posture obedient, perfectly controlled. Until his paws crossed the threshold into the studio. Then everything stopped. The dog froze mid-step, every muscle tensing. His head lifted slowly, ears rotating forward like satellite dishes locking onto a signal. And his eyes, dark, intelligent, devastated, found Diane across 30 feet of studio space. Recognition hit like lightning. Oh my God, Diane whispered, the world narrowing to a single, impossible truth. Billy? On air, 8:17 a.m. The red light blinked on. 3 million viewers tuned in, coffee cups raised, morning routines paused for the feel-good closing segment. Diane stood frozen at the news desk, microphone clipped to her blazer, script forgotten. Across the studio floor, Billy trembled, every muscle coiled tight, chest heaving with rapid breaths. The trainer, Mark Henderson, tightened his grip on the leash, confused by the sudden shift in his normally composed dog. Easy, boy. It's just... Billy's whine cut him off, a sound so raw, so achingly human, that the boom operator flinched. We're live, the floor director whispered urgently into his headset. Someone cue Diane. But Diane couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. 7 years collapsed into a single moment as she stared into eyes that had haunted her dreams. Billy, she whispered again, and the microphone caught it, broadcast it into millions of homes. That voice. Billy's entire body convulsed. His ears shot forward. His tail began wagging so violently his hindquarters swayed. Another whine tore from his throat, desperate, disbelieving, overflowing with recognition. What's happening? The director demanded in the control room. Why isn't she reading the prompter? On set, Billy lunged forward with such explosive force that Mark stumbled, the leather leash burning through his palm. Whoa! Hey! The leash slipped free. For one suspended heartbeat, everyone froze, cameras rolling, lights blazing, the entire studio holding its breath. Then Billy ran. He crossed the polished floor in seconds, powerful legs eating up the distance, claws scrabbling for purchase. A camera operator jerked his equipment aside just in time. Someone gasped. The floor director shouted something incoherent. Billy didn't hear any of it. He saw only Diane, the woman whose heartbeat had kept him alive, whose voice had taught him what safety meant, whose absence had carved a permanent hollow in his chest. "Billy!" Diane's voice broke completely as she dropped to her knees, arms opening just as Billy launched himself into them. If this reunion brought tears to your eyes, don't just watch, support the channel by subscribing. It takes 2 seconds from you, but it means the world to us. Let's continue. 70 pounds of German Shepherd collided with her, nearly knocking her backwards. Billy's paws scrambled against her shoulders, her chest, trying to climb inside her embrace. His cries filled the studio, high-pitched, frantic whines interspersed with sharp barks of pure joy. Diane wrapped her arms around him and sobbed into his fur, 7 years of grief pouring out in ragged gasps. "You're here. Oh God, you're here. I looked for you. I never stopped." Billy pressed his face into the curve of her neck, whining uncontrollably, his entire body shaking. His nose traced her jawline, her hair, her shoulder, memorizing, confirming, celebrating. "You came back. You came back. You came back." Above them, confetti from the previous segment celebration began drifting down, slow, dreamlike, catching the studio lights like snow falling on a frozen Michigan highway. The cameras captured everything. Camera 2, Diane collapsed on the floor, arms locked around Billy, face buried in his fur. Camera 3, Billy's paws kneading frantically against her back, unwilling to let go. The boom mic, every trembling whine, every choked sob, every whispered I missed you so much. In the control room, the director sat motionless, hand frozen over the commercial break button. In living rooms across America, viewers stopped mid-sip, tears streaming down faces, watching a reunion they didn't understand but felt in their bones. Mark Henderson stood at the edge of the set, leash dangling uselessly from his hand, watching his perfectly trained service dog dissolve into a crying, desperate creature who'd finally found what he'd been searching for. On the studio floor, Diane pressed her forehead against Billy's and whispered words only he could hear. "I never forgot you." Billy's tail never stopped wagging. Studio for B conference room, 8:52 a.m. The studio had gone dark 20 minutes ago, but nobody had left. Diane sat in a leather chair in the glass-walled conference room, still trembling, makeup streaked with tears. Billy lay pressed against her legs, head resting on her thigh, eyes tracking her every breath. His tail thumped softly whenever she touched him, which was constantly. Around the table sat Rebecca Chen, Mark Henderson, Empire State Rescue Director Patricia Morris, and the shell-shocked production team who'd just witnessed television history unfold live. "I need to understand what just happened," Patricia said gently, though her own eyes were wet. Mark said Billy's never behaved like that. Not once in 2 years. Diane's hand moved instinctively to Billy's ears, scratching the way she remembered. He leaned into her touch, releasing a contented sigh that seemed to come from his soul. 7 years ago, Diane began, voice still raw. "I was an EMT trainee in Michigan. We responded to an accident during a blizzard, and I found him in a snowbank. Hypothermic. Barely alive." She swallowed hard. "I kept him warm against my chest until we reached the vet. For 3 weeks, I was his whole world." Mark leaned forward, recognition dawning. "The Michigan Highway Rescue. It's in his file, we just didn't have names attached. They took him from me," Diane continued, the old wound still sharp. "Transferred him to a rehabilitation program. I never got to say goodbye. I chased the van through the snow, but..." She broke off, unable to finish. Patricia opened her tablet, scrolling through Billy's training records. His anxiety triggers. We could never identify the source. She looked up, understanding flooding her features. "He was searching for you." Every time he encountered EMT personnel, Mark added quietly, he'd get agitated. Restless. We thought it was trauma from the rescue itself, but... He watched Billy nuzzle closer to Diane. He was trying to find you. Rebecca wiped her eyes. 7 years. He remembered for 7 years. Dogs don't forget their people, Patricia said softly. Especially not the person who saved their life. She pulled a folder from her briefcase, sliding it across the table to Diane. This is Billy's adoption packet. We were planning to feature him in placements until we found the right home. Diane stared at the folder, heart hammering. What happens now? Patricia smiled, genuine, warm. That depends. Are you interested in adopting a 7-year-old German Shepherd with abandonment issues and an unhealthy attachment to morning news anchors? A laugh burst from Diane's chest, half sob, half joy. Yes. God, yes. Billy's tail began wagging harder, as if he understood. The paperwork took 15 minutes. Diane signed every line without reading, hand shaking so badly her signature barely looked legitimate. Billy never moved from her side, occasionally licking her wrist as if confirming she was real. When the final signature dried, Patricia placed the folder in Diane's hands. He's yours. Officially. Diane slid from the chair onto the floor, wrapping both arms around Billy. He climbed into her lap, all 70 pounds of him, burying his face against her shoulder exactly as he had as a dying puppy. You're coming home, Diane whispered into his fur. For real this time. I promise. Billy's entire body relaxed, the tension he'd carried for 7 years finally releasing. Outside the conference room windows, New York City rushed past, millions of people living separate lives. But in that small glass room, 2 souls who'd been broken apart were finally, impossibly, whole. Diane's apartment, Upper West Side, that evening. The apartment door swung open, and Diane stepped aside, gesturing inward. Welcome home, Billy. He entered cautiously, nose working overtime, cataloging scents, mapping territory, processing this new environment. His nails clicked softly against hardwood as he moved from room to room, ears swiveling, tail held at careful half-mast. Diane watched from the doorway, heart in her throat. What if he didn't settle? What if the years had changed too much? Billy completed his inspection of the living room, kitchen, bedroom. Then he returned to where Diane stood and simply sat at her feet, looking up with eyes that held entire universes of trust. She knelt. He stepped forward, resting his full weight against her chest. And just like that, 7 years dissolved. The weeks that followed. Their rhythm found itself naturally, as if it had only been waiting to resume. Billy slept beside Diane's bed, not in it, not yet, but close enough that she could reach down and touch him in the night. Close enough that his steady breathing became the soundtrack to her first peaceful sleep in years. He learned her new routines quickly, morning coffee at 6, walks through Central Park at dawn, studio prep by 7:30. He accompanied her everywhere the network allowed, lying quietly backstage during broadcasts, waiting with infinite patience. The viral video from their reunion had exploded across every platform. 20 million views in 48 hours. News outlets nationwide wanted interviews. Talk shows extended invitations. Diane accepted them all, but only if Billy could join her. This isn't just our story, she told a packed audience at a rescue animal benefit gala 3 months later, Billy sitting calmly at her side. It's the story of every animal waiting in a shelter, holding on to hope that someone will choose them. Billy waited 7 years. How many others are waiting right now? Donations flooded in. Adoption rates spiked. Shelters across the country reported unprecedented interest. Diane became more than a morning news host, she transformed into a voice for the voiceless, using her platform to advocate for the forgotten and abandoned. And Billy, the anxious service dog who'd never quite fit anywhere, finally understood what home meant. 6 months later, Central Park. Early morning light filtered through autumn leaves as Diane threw a tennis ball across the open field. Billy retrieved it with enthusiastic precision, tail wagging, eyes bright. She knelt when he returned, accepting the ball and cupping his face in both hands. "You know what's funny?" she said softly. "Everyone thinks I saved you." Billy tilted his head, listening. "But you saved me too. I was so focused on building a career, climbing ladders, checking boxes. I forgot what mattered." Her thumb traced the soft fur beneath his eye. "You reminded me." Billy leaned forward, pressing his forehead against hers, a gesture of perfect understanding. Around them, the city woke slowly. Joggers passed. Birds called. Life continued its relentless forward motion. But here, in this quiet moment, time felt circular, a dying puppy and a young EMT, a frozen highway and a warm heartbeat, 7 years of separation and one impossible reunion. Some bonds, Diane realized, aren't measured in time. They're written in scent, sound, and memory. In the language of souls who recognize each other instantly, even after silence. Billy barked once, gentle, content, and Diane threw the ball again, watching him run with joy she'd once thought lost forever. Finally, they were both home. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If this story touched you, please hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way in supporting the channel, and I post more heart-melting stories every single day. Don't miss the next one.